The old man slammed the door shut, pretending to leave the room. Then, he quickly ducked behind a statue. Moments later, the hidden door to a secret room creaked open. A stunning woman, braless and barefoot, emerged. She walked into the kitchen, talking on her phone. Having accidentally stepped on some broken glass, the girl sat down, lifted her foot, and began sucking the wound. The view was quite revealing, perhaps lost in the sight. The old man accidentally dropped his phone.
Who is it? Who's there? No, get out! No, please get out! Go away! Get out!
Seeing the terrified girl retreat back into the secret room, the old man quickly opened the main door and left. But no sooner had he reached the villa's exterior than the girl's call came through.
You have to help me! Help me! Help me!
I'll be there as soon as I can.
Oh, please.
The old man had no choice but to return. Just moments later, he was already sweating profusely from the ordeal. The girl hysterically demanded he drive the intruder out. To try and calm her fears, the old man directly admitted he was the peeping Tom from moments ago. Hearing this, the girl became even more distressed, not only wanting to cut ties with him, but also demanding he get out immediately. Just as the devastated old man was about to leave,
Please, Virgil, don't go.
the old man cautiously approached the girl. This was the first time he'd seen her face up close. Her angelic features instantly captivated him. He thought he had captured his prey, the girl. Little did he know, the most skilled predators often appear as prey. Oldman was drawn to the girl's looks, while the girl was after his fortune, worth millions. Oldman was both an antiques expert and an auctioneer. Combining these two related professions gave him ample opportunity for arbitrage. He'd first act as the appraiser, claiming a painting he desired was a forgery. Then he'd auction the piece off as a forgery. During the auction, he'd have his old friend Billy blend in with the buyers. With the two working in concert, they could easily acquire the masterpiece for a rock-bottom price. For example, this painting, worth 8 million euros after Oldman's scheme, Billy snagged it for only 90,000 euros. Then Oldman would buy it from Billy for 180,000. Although Billy made money, it was just a fraction of Oldman's profit. Sometimes, if things went wrong, Billy would even get chewed out by Oldman. Billy could only swallow his anger. Through decades of this partnership, Oldman amassed a room full of priceless world-famous paintings. If you look closely, you'll notice all these masterpieces are portraits of women, because Oldman, an aging virgin, considered these portraits his companions. The reason he never married was his severe mysophobia, fear of germs. He refused to touch anyone. He wouldn't handle anything others had touched. He even wore gloves while eating. His home housed a vast collection of various gloves. One day, he received an unexpected call from Claire. She claimed her family villa contained many antiques and wanted his appraisal. Oldman initially wanted to ignore her, but Claire was persistent with her calls. Reluctantly, Oldman decided to check it out himself. Unexpectedly, he was stood up on their first scheduled meeting. The villa's gate was locked tight. The dilapidated courtyard appeared deserted. Oldman waited in the pouring rain for a full 40 minutes, but Claire never showed. When he received another call from her, he erupted in anger. Claire explained she'd unfortunately been in a car accident on the way and was still laid up in the hospital. Oldman didn't press further. A few days later, Oldman visited the villa again. This time, the villa's caretaker greeted him. Oldman gave the rooms a cursory glance and determined the furniture wasn't valuable. However, while inspecting the basement, he unexpectedly spotted a gear on the floor. He sensed this object was significant and quietly pocketed it. He then took the gear to his friend, a skilled mechanic. The mechanic couldn't identify it either. This only piqued Oldman's curiosity further. When they spoke again by phone, Claire promised she would definitely be at the villa and asked Oldman to start cataloging the items. During the inventory process, Oldman discovered several more gears. Just then, Claire called again, apologizing once more that she couldn't make it. As they were talking, a nearby ladder slipped down the stairs with a clatter. Oldman realized she was nearby. After searching around, he confirmed Claire was hiding somewhere in the room. Furious, Oldman kicked over a chair. Just as he was about to explode, Claire said she'd call him back at 9 p.m. and abruptly hung up. Oldman took the newly found gears to the mechanic. After examining them, the mechanic said they might be 18th century antiques, but what exactly they were, he couldn't determine from just these few gears. Driven by curiosity, Oldman privately contacted the caretaker. After offering a generous tip, the caretaker revealed he'd worked at the villa for over 10 years and had never once seen Claire's face because Claire suffered from a strange illness. Upon learning she was ill, Oldman called to apologize for his previous behavior. However, Claire flew into a rage. Their conversation ended on bad terms. Just when Oldman was at a loss, the mechanic made a breakthrough. An inscription was found on one of the gears. Vaucanson. That was the name of an 18th century automaton maker. Rumor has it he even invented an automaton that could speak, but for some unknown reason the technology wasn't passed down, the mechanic said. If they could find enough parts, he could definitely reconstruct the original automaton. A few days later, Claire called again, but this time too, she remained hidden. From the sound of her voice, Oldman deduced she was hiding just behind the wall. Claire explained, "Since I got this strange illness, I haven't left this house in over 10 years. It's like you always wearing gloves. I just don't want contact with anyone." During their conversation, Oldman found another gear. This time they didn't argue. Oldman left the contract and exited the room. He took the gear to the mechanic. If they could restore this automaton, its value would be immeasurable. Afterward, while cataloguing the furniture, Oldman used every spare moment to collect automaton parts. One day, Claire passed the signed contract out. Oldman noticed some information was still missing. Claire handed out an expired passport for him to copy the details. As he returned the passport, Oldman caught a glimpse of a clear eye. Just one look, and Oldman was deeply captivated. Claire felt violated and scolded him for changing his hair color. Oldman left the room, also angered. Downstairs, the caretaker stopped him, saying Claire wanted him to have a key so he could come and go freely to inventory the items. The caretaker also casually mentioned to always slam the door shut loudly so Claire could hear it, otherwise she easily gets panicked. That evening, meeting with the mechanic, Oldman started asking him for tips on wooing women. After all, the mechanic was quite the ladies' man. The mechanic advised that time heals all wounds. Following this, Oldman washed out the dye and returned his hair to its natural color. Over the next period, whenever they had time, they'd chat on the phone about auction details. However, one day, her phone suddenly became unreachable. It remained unreachable for several consecutive days. Worried, Oldman contacted the villa's caretaker, who said he'd been hospitalized with pneumonia for a week. This meant no one had delivered food to Claire for a week.
Who's been bringing her things to eat?
Fearing something had happened to Claire, Oldman quickly bought a load of groceries and rushed to the villa. He called her name several times in the room but got no response. Then he saw a blood-stained towel in the kitchen. Oldman panicked instantly. He rushed to the secret room door and knocked repeatedly. Claire said a few days ago she felt unwell. She couldn't reach anyone by phone. She accidentally fell and hit her head. This made Oldman even more concerned.
Claire, open the door. You need to see a doctor!
That night, Oldman took a newly purchased phone to the mechanic, hoping the mechanic could teach him how to use it. With the phone, communication between them became much easier. Oldman often chatted with Claire through the secret room wall. During their talks, he'd constantly scan the portraits of women on the walls, imagining which one resembled Claire. Compared to the cold collection hanging on the wall, he yearned more for the living woman on the other end of the phone. While checking the inventory list again, Oldman decided to play a trick. He went to the door and slammed it shut loudly, but he himself quietly hid behind the statue again. Hearing the door slam, Claire emerged from the secret room. After glancing around to confirm the room was empty, she locked the main door from the inside. Oldman finally got a clear look at Claire's face. This face was more beautiful than any masterpiece in his collection. Seeing Claire walking towards the statue, to avoid being discovered, he called her phone. While Claire went to answer the phone in another room, Oldman quickly slipped out. The next time he went to the villa, he found the lock had been changed. He couldn't reach Claire by phone either. Oldman could only wait in the cafe across the street. When the caretaker arrived to clear things out, Oldman took the opportunity to go inside. Claire explained the locks were changed every 6 months, and that she had left the new key for him on the table earlier. Oldman began discussing her condition with her, hoping she could soon leave the secret room. Claire explained she suffered from agoraphobia. All these years, there was only one place that didn't trigger her fear, a restaurant called Night and Day.
I'd be happy to take you.
Silence from the other side of the wall. By now, the automaton was mostly assembled. Yet Oldman felt that, like the automaton, he himself was incomplete. That night, Oldman also revealed why he'd never had a girlfriend. He revered women, but also feared them, always feeling he didn't understand the species. But this time, Claire felt different. Claire's birthday was approaching. Oldman wanted to give her a practical gift. The mechanic advised him that, for a first gift, romance was usually best. So, Oldman presented her with a bouquet of flowers. But Claire questioned the appraisal list, believing the valuations he provided were far too low. Oldman explained those were just the starting auction prices.
You're trying to cheat me, Mr. Oldman. It's all to your advantage. You're a fucking thief.
Oldman instantly flew into a rage as well. Not only did he declare he was quitting as her agent, he angrily threw the flowers on the floor. But seeing the mechanic's affectionate interaction with his girlfriend, Oldman began to wonder if he'd been irrational. When Claire called to apologize, "You don't have to be so upset. I'm not mad at you." Later, Oldman returned to chat with Claire outside her secret room. Before leaving, he repeated his earlier trick, and then the opening scene unfolded. Claire accidentally injured her foot. As she was sucking the wound on her foot, Oldman, lost in the sight, accidentally dropped his phone. Hearing someone, Claire fearfully retreated into the room. Oldman seized the chance to run out. Then he was called back by Claire's frantic phone call. This back and forth left Oldman drenched in sweat. For the first time, he removed his glove to wipe the sweat from his face. Claire also bravely stepped out of the room. Seeing Claire's face up close for the first time, Oldman felt he finally had his prey within his grasp. The mechanic told him, to truly win her over, he needed to treat her like a normal person. When he gifted her cosmetics, Claire became frantic again. She thought Oldman just wanted to get her out of the house quickly. She angrily slammed the secret room door shut. To smooth things over between them, Oldman arranged a candlelight dinner at the villa. Claire kissed Oldman for the first time, unprompted. They had their first pleasant conversation. When confirming the promotional list again, Claire was very satisfied and proactively opened the secret room door for Oldman. Just as they were deeply engaged in conversation, Oldman noticed the automaton parts in a cabinet. Claire said it was something her father collected. She never understood what it was. Oldman looked at it for a moment and said, "These pieces might be very valuable, but I can't tell you what they are." Claire immediately got upset again.
If you're more interested in my furniture and paintings than in me.
Seeing Claire angry, Oldman, inexperienced with women, didn't know how to console her. After consulting the mechanic, Oldman chose an expensive ring for Claire. When he arrived at the villa with the gift, he found Claire was gone. Oldman instantly panicked. After searching the room fruitlessly, he anxiously ran to the cafe across the street to ask. Learning Claire might have gone to a nearby park, Oldman quickly gathered people to search for her. If his assistant hadn't reminded him, he would have completely forgotten about that day's auction. During the auction, Oldman, his mind solely on Claire, was completely out of sorts. He made a mess of the auction proceedings, prompting laughter from the audience. Seeing Oldman completely unfocused, his friend Billy kindly reminded him, human emotions are like works of art. They can be forged. They seem genuine, but they might be fakes. Surrounded by his room full of masterpieces, Oldman fell into deep thought. But before he could ponder too long, the mechanic suggested he check the villa for other hidden rooms. The caretaker led him up to the attic. Sure enough, they found Claire curled up there. Oldman gently approached and embraced her. They spent a pleasant night together. Sharing a bed with a woman for the first time, Oldman was so thrilled he didn't sleep a wink all night. It was truly wonderful. Welcome to the world of adults. Experiencing the beauty of love for the first time, Oldman hoped Claire could leave the villa soon. One rainy night, just as Oldman got out of his car, a group of men suddenly emerged from the surroundings. They descended upon him, beating him mercilessly. Oldman was quickly beaten bloody. Seeing a light on in the villa, Oldman managed to call Claire. When she saw Oldman lying injured in the rain, Claire finally overcame her inner fear. She rushed out of the villa. Seeing the barely conscious Oldman, Claire dashed into the street to flag down a car. Soon, Oldman was rushed to the hospital. Seeing the anxious Claire by his bedside, a smile appeared on Oldman's face. His plan had finally succeeded. After being discharged, Oldman brought Claire to his own villa. Rather than calling it a home, Oldman preferred to say it was more like a hotel because it lacked a woman's presence. Oldman not only gave her a tour of the villa, but also led her into his secret vault, never shown to anyone. Oldman said, "If you're willing to move in, this entire room of paintings is yours." Claire excitedly hugged Oldman and said,
If anything should ever happen to us, I want you to know that I do love you.
I love you too.
Later, they dined together at a restaurant. During the meal, Oldman presented the auction list for Claire's villa items. This was the final auction plan. Unexpectedly, Claire suddenly said, "Since I decided to move in with you, I suddenly don't want to auction my family's things anymore. I want to leave everything as it is. I understand." Oldman not only readily agreed to her request, but also personally tore up the auction list. To fully enjoy their time together, Oldman announced that after attending the next auction in London, he would no longer preside over any auctions. Before the auction began, Oldman happily chatted with Claire on the phone. The auction went very smoothly. As soon as it ended, Oldman rushed back home. He searched the rooms, but couldn't find Claire. The housekeeper said Claire had gone out with the mechanic and would probably be back later. Oldman noticed the painting Billy had sent him. He wanted to add it to his secret vault, but the moment he stepped into the vault, Oldman suddenly felt dizzy. His entire lifetime collection was gone. Oldman stood there stunned for a long moment. Only then did he spot the automaton left in the corner. As he numbly walked towards the automaton, he accidentally triggered its mechanism. Suddenly the automaton began to speak.
There's always something authentic concealed in every forgery. I couldn't agree more. That's why I'll miss you, Mr. Oldman.
Oldman pulled a tape recorder from the automaton's base. So that's how the automaton spoke. Oldman rushed back to Claire's villa. The former lock had been replaced with a heavy chain. He desperately shook the iron gate, but the villa was long empty. Oldman went back to the cafe across the street to wait. The owner, sensing his distress, said, "If you have questions, you could ask the little lady over there." Unexpectedly, this dwarf woman was also named Claire. The woman said, "The villa's empty now. If you want to rent it, I can give you a discount." So, she was the actual owner of the villa. She usually rented it out to film crews. Oldman finally understood. Everything in the room had been rented props. That's why Claire suddenly didn't want the auction. Still clinging to hope, Oldman went to the mechanic's shop. It too was empty, cleared out. Claire's phone number was disconnected. Oldman examined the back of the painting Billy had sent. To Oldman, with affection and gratitude, Billy. So, this was all Billy's scheme, his revenge for Oldman's unfair dealings over the years. Oldman always thought Billy worked for him. In that moment, he realized he was wrong. Oldman considered going to the police, but remembering the happy moments with Claire, he decided against reporting it. Oldman couldn't accept that everything Claire said was a lie. So, he traveled to the plaza Claire had mentioned, where there was a restaurant that didn't frighten her. After searching, Oldman indeed found the restaurant named Night and Day. He pushed the door open and went inside. The restaurant had a peculiar decor filled with large and small mechanical clocks arranged neatly. Oldman took a seat facing the entrance. A waiter approached and asked, "Sir, are you alone?" Oldman paused for a long moment, then replied, "No, I'm waiting for someone." Yes, he was waiting for someone he would likely never meet again. The Best Offer, directed by Giuseppe Tornatore, is a 2013 romantic suspense film. The eccentric Oldman, never faltering in his decades-long career, finds himself drawn to the reclusive Claire, who refuses to show her face. Their unusual way of communicating gradually entrances him. He believes himself the skilled hunter, never imagining that the most skilled predators often appear as prey. For an old man who had never tasted intimacy his entire life, just one experience cost him the fortune he had amassed over a lifetime. As the old saying goes, lust can lead to ruin. Who knew it could be so true? Anyway, I think I need to go delete my girlfriend's contact info now. Alright, that's the story for today. Feel free to comment, like, and share.